Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Apopka High School welcomes you to Joe Sterling Gymnasium for our 7th and final game of Day 2. It is game number 15 overall at the 10th Annual Metro vs. Florida Challenge, the event that puts the reputation of the Orlando Metro Conference and its 20 public high schools in Orange County against some of the best talent in the greater Central Florida area. And in this game 15, we welcome our guests wearing the black jerseys. Visitors on the scoreboard from Bishop Moore Catholic High School, they are the Hornets. And wearing the white jerseys, home on the scoreboard representing the Orlando Metro Conference, from Boone High School, please welcome the Braves. Let's meet the teams, beginning with our guests from Bishop Moore and starting at guard with 6'1" sophomore, number 0, Trayvon Osborne. At guard and forward, 6'4" senior, number 1, Osyon Jones. At guard, 6'1" junior, number 2, Blake Berkey. At guard and forward, 6' senior, number 10, Keyshawn Hendrickson. And finally for the Hornets at forward, 6'7" junior, number 32, Daniele Russo. And the head coach of the Hornets in his 4th year at Bishop Moore, Mr. Jim Yarbrough. And now let's meet the starting lineup for the Boone Braves. Starting at power forward and center, 6'3" sophomore, number 1, Joey DePryor. At guard, 5'9" junior, number 3, Matthew Kleber. At guard, 6'3" junior, number 5, Javion Phelps. At guard, 6'3" junior, number 10, Searl. And finally for the Braves, at shooting guard, 6' senior, number 24, Shukiou Sprauve. The head coach of the Braves in his 5th year at Boone, Mr. David Martinson. The officials for tonight's game are from the Central Florida Officials Association here in Orlando. For those of you in the arena, tonight's game is being broadcast live on our YouTube channel, Metro vs. Florida Challenge. If you have friends and family who are not able to join us in person, whether they are in Orlando or anywhere else in the world, you can send them to YouTube, search for the Metro vs. Florida Challenge, and it should come up on your favorite mobile device, computer, or smart TV. You can also go to metrovsfl.com to get links to our live video coverage as well as live stats and much more. Again, metrovsfl.com. And good evening to those of you joining us online. My name is Mark Barchi, the media director for the Metro vs. Florida Challenge, and I am joined once again by Neil Fisher of the Apopka Chief to take you through our final game of Night 2.
Absolutely, Mark. We will have 15 games in the book after this game. And the Florida contingency will be holding a 9-5 lead as we get into this game.
Offensive foul is called against Matthew Kleber, his first.
So getting into this game, we've seen this most recently, a pair of teams that are used to making, not only qualifying for the FHSAA postseason tournament, but making long, deep runs, even occasionally maybe going from being a regional finalist to a state championship contender. Bishop Moore went 20-5 last year, 6-2 in their district. They're now members of Class 4A District 7. And this is, believe it or not, their first appearance in the Metro vs. Florida Challenge. Somewhat of a surprise considering they're only about 7 miles from Apopka. And unfortunately, despite that great record, they lost in the semifinals of their district championship tournament, so they did not qualify for the FHSA postseason tournament. And we'll get a little bit more into this as the game goes on. Until this year, the first and second place teams are the two finalists of each district championship tournament, then advance to the FHSAA postseason tournament. And from that team, 10 players graduated. The good news, though, is because they're a private school, they pretty much have a line of succession. Again, I went to a private school, so I experienced this, although it was the sport of hockey, not basketball. But you get to bring in your players, the players you want as, say, 8th or 9th graders, sometimes even 7th graders. You let them sit on the bench for a couple years. They learn the way of the program, in this case the Bishop Moore way. And then when they're 10th or 11th grade and you have that large turnover, they're ready to step in.
Absolutely, Neil, and we'll see how they do tonight. And here we're going to have Javion Phelps picks up 2 for the Braves, put them on the board. So it took us a minute and 45 seconds to get any scoring activity. Looks like this one's going to be a defensively scrappy game. We've seen a couple of those here today.
Yeah, the last one was, they did get a little bit more offensive-minded in the last 4 minutes or so. However, moving over to Boone, they're the Metro Conference representative. As we mentioned, they're just like Bishop Moore, expected to not only qualify for the FHSAA postseason tournament, but make long runs into the tournament.
Blake Berge is fouled on the attempt. He'll go to the line and shoot 2. The foul is called against number 1, Joey DePryor. That's his first personal foul on the team's second.
And, of course, last season they went only 12-12, 6-5 in their district. So that's an extremely disappointing season for Boone. Of course, you and I both had an opportunity to get to know Boone somewhat. We are the house announcers for the Wekiva Mustangs. And there was a run from about 5 years ago to 10 years ago where Boone, actually it was only 3 years ago, 3 to about 7 years ago in that 4th season, Boone and Wekiva played each other 3 times in the postseason tournament. Nonetheless, again, 12-12. They are 4-3 in the Metro versus Florida Challenge. And they graduate 7 seniors as well, but they do return 5 seniors along with 5 juniors. So certainly, again, not maybe quite as direct as you get at a private school or a smaller school like Bishop Moore, but they are in the same situation where they have had new players to come in, but those players have been in the Boone program and have learned the Boone way through the JV and freshman teams.
All right, we're going to get a held ball, possession Braves.
And again, the faces that you want to look for, the names you want to look for in this particular contest: Shukiou Sprauve, he's a senior. Matthew Kleber, another senior. And juniors Javion Phelps, Will Searl, and sophomore Joey DePryor.
Basket scored by Boone's Will Searl.
In Bishop Moore's big names are Osyon Jones, Stephen Martin, and Keyshawn Hendrickson.
Out of bounds, Braves ball. Did you get the basket down here? There's a basket down here.
So this is the Metro versus Florida Challenge, the 10th annual event. And the premise of the Metro versus Florida Challenge actually comes from about half a dozen of the same idea taking place at the college level. The first chronologically was the ACC versus Big Ten Challenge. You have every game, there is one Metro Conference team playing. They take on a school representing the Florida contingency, and the Metro Conference is made up of all the public schools in Orange County.
Javion Phelps from Joey DePryor for 3.
So if the schools, such as Bishop Moore, even though they might be in Orange County, are not a part of the Metro Conference, they are then a member of the Florida contingency.
All right.
And at the end of the 23 games, which, by the way, Mark, is the most ever, we add up which side wins the most games.
Traveling, Braves ball. 30-second timeout requested by the Hornets. We'll be right back.
So as we come back to action here, just under the 4-minute mark, and certainly looking at the individual statistics, they reflect the score and tell the story. 4 turnovers for Bishop Moore already, only 1 for Boone, but field goal percentage, of course, that works hand in hand with turnovers because you get easier baskets. Bishop Moore has yet to convert a field goal. They were 0 of 3 at the timeout, now 0 of 4. Boone is 3 of 5. And a bit of a change here, actually quite a bit of change, a much more deliberate pace, more methodical, more of a processing offense than we've seen over the last 4 or 5 games, Mark.
Yeah, certainly true, and we're going to get to go out of bounds off of the 3 attempt by Osyon Jones, and Boone will get the team rebound here. Under 3 minutes to play in the first quarter.
What is not a surprise, not only for the last several games, but throughout the course of this event, is man-to-man defense. Again, only about 8 minutes have seen a team play anything other than man-to-man defense. And Bishop Moore still unable to convert a field goal. Their lone point was on a free throw.
Checking into the game. Strike that first, we have a foul to record. It is against number 1, Joey DePryor, his second personal foul, and the team's third. And they'll have some personnel changes. Hornets have the ball at their own baseline.
So at least the one advantage that Bishop Moore has created here in the early going is on the fouls. They have yet to commit one, and as you mentioned, Boone has 3, so certainly more likely to get into the bonus and shoot free throws than Boone.
Out of bounds, Braves ball. Checking into the game for Boone, number 11, Anthony Silva.
So Matthew Kleber there with a smart play. Looked like Bishop Moore was going to get an easy layup, a great pass, but he stood in front of the pass, cut off the lane, and then slapped the ball off the knee of the Bishop Moore player to send it out of bounds.
Foul is called against Hornets number 10, Keyshawn Hendrickson. That's his first, the team's first.
And of course, in our last game, we saw Abdullah Theo put up 37 points, which was the 4th highest individual total in this the history of this event. The reason I bring that up is you mentioned, Mark, that B.J. Taylor holds the all-time record at 59. He played for the Boone Braves.
3 seconds in the key, Hornets ball. Bell will take us out to the front court. $1:35 remaining in the first period.
Yeah, so Mark, there is more to this. So the Boone Braves do have a presence in the record book right at the top there. Of course, again, B.J. Taylor, the highest individual scoring total ever.
Keyshawn Hendrickson spins for a jumper.
And Bishop Moore finally gets on the board. Their first conversion, 1 of 7 now.
Out of bounds. Hornets ball. Checking into the game for Boone, number 2. Blake Berkey.
And again, another change that we see is this man-to-man defense is picked up as a half-court man-to-man defense.
Foul is called against Braves, number 2. That's Michael Bright's first personal foul, the team's 4th.
Under a minute to go here in the first quarter, and we got another turnover by Bishop Moore. And another turnover by Boone.
Or perhaps not. Osyon Jones gets the basket and a chance to make it a 3-point play. The foul called against Michael Bright. His second, the team's 5th.
So after missing their first 6 field goals, actually their first 7, Bishop Moore has now made 2 in a row. Both of them have come off of transition. So that basket was about as easy as possible.
It has a glitch. I think the score is wrong. It's 7-6.
40 seconds left. Bishop Moore with possession of the ball.
We'll get at the end.
Again, both these teams play a much more deliberate and methodical pace. That's tied into the fact that they do have a much longer thinking process.
Blake Berkey.
Book, official book. What do we have? Official book. 7.
They just scored and they just scored. We just had a breakaway.
What's the official score?
They just scored down here.
Yeah, we're going to pause here and figure out the score.
So Bishop Moore 8, Boone 9? Correct. Okay.
All right. Okay, so Jones has 3, Berkey has 3. Where are the other 2?
Okay. There you go. We're good.
Got it.
Okay, Mark, so we got our discrepancy straightened out. Boone with the last shot here.
That takes us to the end of the first period. It's a one-point ball game, a scrappy defensive contest to wrap up day 2 here. Braves have 9, the Hornets with 8 at the end of 8 minutes. We'll be back in just a minute with the second period here at Joe Sterling Gymnasium. Welcome back to Joe Sterling Gymnasium. Mark Barchi with Neil Fisher here to take you through the second quarter of our final game of the evening. And it's going to be a steal to start off the period.
And looking at the statistics, Mark, not really a surprise, very much reflective of the score. Bishop Moore 30% from the field, 3 of 10, and Boone only 4 of 12. That's 33%. They actually started off making 3 of the first 5, Boone that is. Since then they are 1 of 7.
Foul is called against number 1, Osyon Jones. That's his first personal foul. The team's second at the line, shooting 2, Javion Phelps.
So Boone started off fairly hot from the field, and has cooled off. Bishop Moore's gone the other way. They were only they missed their first 7 shots. Now, of course, they're 3 of 10, so that means they've actually made their last 3 field goals. Rebounds are decidedly in Bishop Moore's favor, 11-4, but turnovers are in Boone's favor, 6-3. Only 3 field free throws have been shot, all 3 by Bishop Moore, and they've converted 2 of the 3. Oh, beautiful inbound pass in play there.
Osyon Jones on the inbound from Blake Berkey.
So perfectly placed pass there to Jones.
Joey DePryor spins for a Boone layup.
So a stop, pop, and drop there. Stopped right in front of the basket about 6 feet and banked it.
Keyshawn Hendrickson for 3.
And both teams here have made their run. They made their opening statement. Boone with a 7-1 lead at one point. That lead was then cut to 9-8 by Bishop Moore. And now, of course, we're tied at 13 all here. Give and go.
Will Searl on the pass from Joey DePryor.
And both these teams rely on the basic fundamental strategies. A lot of give and goes. You're seeing a lot of popping out off of screens. Good movement of the ball as far as shooting, as far as where they're shooting it. And again, as we mentioned a couple times in that first quarter, this is a much different feel to the game. there's a much more deliberate and methodical pace than we've seen over the last 4 or 5 games.
Hold is called against Osyon Jones. His third.
So again, another player popping out there off of a screen, unable to get the shot, although it was a good look.
Keyshawn Hendrickson from Blake Berkey for 3.
But guess what, Mark? Bishop Moore has the lead for the first time.
Yeah, Berkey with 3 assists so far. He's been instrumental to that, even though he only has 3 points for himself.
Ooh.
Soft touch there by Will Searl from the paint.
Yeah, not just a soft touch on the shot, but the pass was soft. Exactly what you needed. Don't need anything laser bullet when you're that close inside. Another soft touch.
Hornets basket by number 0, Trayvon Osborne.
So again, both teams, good passing on the interior there, drawing double teams and then passing it to the open man on the other side of the paint.
Hold is called against number 2, Blake Berkey. That's his first personal foul. The team's 4th.
A rare turnover for Boone, only the 4th of the game.
Osborne steals and passes to Berkey for 2.
Great awareness there to figure out where that ball was going.
Will Searl on the pass from Matthew Kleber.
Simple textbook passing and shooting there. Get the ball, turn around, square up to the basket. Make sure those shoulders are facing 90 degrees.
Blake Berkey, 3.
Same situation there. Sloppy pass. Haven't seen a lot of that. But
Osborne steals 2 for the Hornets.
And Bright not bothering to use 2 hands there, tried to use the old shovel pass like you see in football.
So a game that started out very anemically for the Hornets, now all of a sudden they've come on strong in a big way in the late first or early second quarter, and they're on top, and now it's Boone who's looking for answers.
Yeah, Bishop Moore has outscored Boone 24-12 since the first 9 points, the first 8 points. Again, mentioned Boone started off strong as far as field goal percentage, making 3 of 5 for 60%, while Bishop Moore missed the first 7. That's been completely opposite.
Blake Berkey fouled on the attempt. He'll go to the line and shoot 2 for the Hornets. Foul called against Braves number 10, Will Searl. That's his first personal foul, and the team's 6th.
And of course, as you just mentioned, Mark, Bishop Moore has really turned the tables around, and Berkey has been the centerpiece of that.
Sprauve in.
Berkey now with 9 points, only 3 of 9 from the field, but again, the more shots you take, the more likely you are to score. He now has, of course, 10 points.
Mark Morrison into the game for the Hornets.
3 of 4 from the free throw line. And Bishop Moore has opened up a 9-point lead as we approach 2 minutes before halftime.
Stolen by Osborne. Out to the outside. Short. Push is called against number 32, Daniele Russo. His first.
Under 2 minutes now. And Boone certainly needs to get some points here.
Daniel Cross picks up 2.
Nice execution there of driving and dishing. Draw the double coverage. Again, traditional fundamental basketball.
3-point basket for Keyshawn Hendrickson. Phelps is fouled on the attempt. He'll go to the line and shoot 2. The foul is called against number 0. That's Trayvon Osborne on the hold, his first, the team's 6th. Checking into the game for Boone, Jack Candelaria.
So no free throws. 10.
Will Searl off the inbound for 2.
And again, there was some basic fundamental basketball. Give and go, inbound pass. Pass led the Sura into the basket, didn't have to break motion.
Three-point basket by number 10, Will Searl.
The 40 seconds left here in the first half. And on that last possession, we haven't seen a lot of transition, but very efficient when it does occur. Again, basic fundamental execution. 2 passes, hit your potential score in stride, and give him the best possible ability to be able to score by hitting him while leaning forward. So 7 seconds, last opportunity for Boone here. Tippin, yes! Perfect way to end the half.
Putback made by Jack Candelaria, and that takes us to halftime.
Mistake by Bishop Moore cost them. They fell asleep at the wheel there. Bishop Moore failed to rotate, did not get over to the right side.
Not a 3, that it is 27, not 28.
And so Boone cuts what was an 8-point lead all the way down to 2 in the last minute or so.
It's a 3-point ball game. 30-27 is the score. Headed into the locker rooms in game number 15 of the Metro versus Florida Challenge. We'll be back in about 8 minutes.
good?
The Braves have the opening possession of the third period. All right, welcome back to Joe Sterling Gymnasium for the last two periods of day two. It's a three-point ball game in favor of the Hornets, and this is not what we saw coming at the beginning of the first quarter. We thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be a blowout. We're going to be in a running clock by halftime, and then all of a sudden, Bishop Moore woke up, and not only are they back in the ball game, they're actually in the lead headed into the third period.
Yeah, Boone had a 7-1 lead. Like you mentioned, I think it was about 3 minutes in. Since then, Bishop Moore has scored 29 points, 29-20. And again, mentioned it several times throughout the first half, Bishop Moore missed its first 7 shots. They are now actually at 48% from the field.
And the Braves here will start with a turnover. Not how they wanted to get things going for this half.
48% from Bishop Moore from the field, 11 of 23. Boone shot the ball very well, too. They had a rough patch there about 4 minutes in the first half. Still come out 12 of 23, 52%. Both teams, Bishop Moore has an advantage in the rebounding, 14-9. And in particular, 4-1 on the offensive boards.
Blake Berkey gets the first points of the second half.
So that three extra offensive rebounds usually leads to 5 or 6 more points. They also have a slight advantage at the line, Bishop Moore that is, shooting 4 of 5 compared to 2 of 2 for Boone.
Putback made by Joey DePryor.
And the turnovers are relatively even, 7 for Bishop Moore, 6 for Boone.
Held ball. Possession. Bishop Moore.
So high score for Boone is Will Searl. He has 12. And 7 players have scored for Boone. Looking at Bishop Moore, their high score is Keyshawn Hendrickson. He has actually Blake Berkey is the high scorer for Bishop Moore with 12 points.
Hold called on Sprauve.
And Keyshawn Hendrickson has 11. So between the two, 23 points and only 4 players have scored. Again, 7 players. Is it 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, 7 players have scored for Boone. Only 4 have scored for Bishop Moore.
Hold is called against number 3, Matthew Kleber, his second.
And both teams remain in man-to-man defense. We've seen that for all but about 8 minutes of this entire event. So again, Mark, this is the Metro versus Florida Challenge. Actually, yeah, the Metro versus Florida Challenge. And what it is every public high school in Orange County is a member of the Metro Conference.
Javion Phelps picks up 3 on the pass from Sprauve.
And each game pits one of those schools, a member of the Metro Conference, against a Florida contingency. Now again, if you're not a member of the Metro Conference, but you are but that by default makes you a member of the Florida contingency. Bishop Moore is a good example of that. They're only about 7 miles from here, located on Edgewater by Fairbanks Avenue, yet they're a member of the Florida contingency because they are not part of the Metro Conference. Only public schools are a member of the conference.
Foul is called against Osyon Jones, his third, the team's first this half. At the line shooting 2, Javion Phelps.
And again, this is Bishop Moore's first appearance in the Metro versus Florida Challenge. At least to me, that's somewhat of a surprise, again, because they are only about 7 miles down the road. And right now it is a 9-5 score in favor of the Florida contingency. So both free throws good, much needed by Boone. Brings them within 1 point. Tomorrow we will have our last 8 games. Of course, the host school, Apopka, will be playing. It'll be their second game. As will Windermere. They played the first and the last game of this year's Metro versus Florida Challenge.
To the corner. It's good. Phelps to Kleber for 3. Jones dances with Kleber. Swing back to Morrison. Now he'll try to punch in. And a short air ball will go out of bounds. And are they going to say Boone touched it? No, it is untouched on the way out. So the Braves will get the ball at their own baseline.
Yeah, probably a little too aggressive with trying to force that shot. Off balance, 2 Boone players in his face. Not really a smart decision.
Swing to Kleber for 3, short.
So again, both these teams are very well balanced as far as taking the 2 and 3 pointers. You might want to question that 3-pointer and some of the other ones as far as how far back, but they were open looks. There was nobody in within 3 feet.
Morrison can't get the 3 to go. Kleber on the rebound. Berkey is called on the block. That's his second personal foul. The team's second this half. At the line, shooting 2, Javion Phelps.
Get that rebound block. Let's go.
So Phelps was 12 points now, 3 of 4 from the field. Now 4 of 5 from the free throw line. Chance to give Boone the lead. Again, very nice stroke there, Mark.
Foul called against number 10, Will Searl. His second personal foul, the team's third this half. Berkey at the line. Phelps' 3 doesn't go. The rebound to Osborne. Swing to Bell. What a jump. Montrell Bell uses the backboard. Berkey on the assist.
So that's a 6-point turnaround, Mark.
Matthew Kleber for 3, the pass from Javion Phelps. And so now it's a Braves 5-point lead. 2.5 to go in the third.
Yeah, I was going to say there, Mark, if you don't succeed at first, Try again.
Osborne on the rebound. Nearly gets the ball taken away from him by Kleber. Back to the corner again. 3, bounces out. And a contested rebound is going to go off of the Braves. So the Hornets are going to get another shot here. 2:02 to go. Checking into the game for the Hornets, number 32, Daniele Russo. Inside pass to Russo, and he's going to get called for 3 seconds in the key. Braves ball. Checking into the game for Boone, number 22, Daniel Cross.
So just under 2 minutes left here in the third quarter, Mark. Again, turnovers have been very impressive. Low number, only 8 for Bishop Moore, 7 for Boone.
Will Searl for 3 on the pass from Kleber. Or for 2, rather, from Kleber. It was number 3 that passed it to him, not a three-point basket.
Searl, perfect execution, resembled the big men of years past there. Planted his foot forward and turned and leaned into the basket. And Bishop Moore gets away with a bad decision there.
Foul is called against Braves number 24, Shukiou Sprauve. His second personal foul, the team's 4th. Checking into the game for the Hornets, number 10, Keyshawn Hendrickson. So a violation away from the ball there with the Hornets running out of bounds, and that'll cost them a possession.
Yeah,
Phelps is fouled on the way up. He'll go to the line and shoot 2 for the Braves. Hornets foul is called against number 32, Daniele Russo. His second and the team's 3rd.
That pass you were commenting about there, of course, which was the turnover, it really was not a very good pass. It was actually thrown towards the sideline. And, of course, Kleber did the rest there, just forcing the play out off to the side. They're not giving any room to be able to catch the ball. Phelps. So Phelps now with 14 points. That ties him high score with Searl. Phelps, 3 of 5 from the line, and now, 3 of 5 from the field. Now 7 of 8 from the free throw line. And Boone is 6 of 6 from the free throw line here in the third quarter. 9-point lead as well, the biggest of the game for Boone.
Morrison's 3 is short. Braves go to work. They'll go straight for the 3. Off the mark, gets his own rebound. Javion Phelps is fouled on the putback attempt. He'll go to the line and shoot 2. The foul is called against number 0, Trayvon Osborne, his second and the team's 4th.
So again, the key to that offensive rebounds for Phelps, who's now the leading scorer with 15. He was leaning forward, and that carried his momentum.
Checking into the game for the Hornets, Blake Berkey. And for Boone, Sean McCabe.
Of course, now Phelps is 8 of 9 at the line. 7 of 9. Boone's is 7 of 8 from the free throw line here in the third quarter, and they have now extended the lead to 10 points, the largest of the game. Opportunity for Bishop Moore to get the last shot. They decide not to. Really not a good shot selection there. 2 Boone players in your face leaning backwards. Three offensive rebounds there, Mark, and we always talk about it.
Last chance put back by Daniel Cross. It's good, and it'll make it a 12-point ball game. 48-36, the Braves lead the Hornets going into the final 8 minutes of day 2 here at the 10th annual Metro versus Florida Challenge. We'll be right back. Braves have the opening possession of the 4th period. Welcome back to Joe Sterling Gymnasium. Mark Barchi with Neil Fisher, ready to take you to the home stretch here of the second day of the Metro versus Florida Challenge. 12-point ball game. Braves up 48-36 going into the final period.
Field goal percentage with an assist from turnovers has been the difference. Again, Bishop Moore fell behind 9-1 early in this game. They missed their first 7 attempts, field goal attempts. They were able to get the percentage up to 48% at halftime. It has now dropped again back down to 35 here at the end of 3 quarters, only 13 of 37. Boone, for their part, actually dropped a little bit too, but they're still much better than Bishop Moore, 47.4 again compared to 35. 18 of 38 have dropped for Boone.
Phelps is fouled on the attempt. He'll go to the line and shoot 2. Blake Berkey is called on his 3rd personal foul, the team's 5th.
And looking at turnovers, a 3-point differential, 10 for Bishop Moore, 7 for Boone. Again, only 3 is not a tremendous amount, but if you consider that's 3 more opportunities for Boone to put points on the board, that of course does add into the cumulative effect. Rebounds are 22-22. Bishop Moore actually did hold about a 6-point advantage for most of the game. Boone actually caught up during that last 4 minutes, and they actually also now have the lead in free throws, 8 out of 10 compared to 6 of 7 for Bishop Moore.
Mark Morrison for 3 from Blake Berkey. Now that's harkening back to the second quarter there when we saw a lot of that action going on.
Yeah, and now another turnover opportunity to go back-to-back here for Boone.
Keyshawn Hendrickson steals 2. Well, that helps the Hornet cause a lot. Now we're under a 10-point differential.
Yeah, best possible start there for Boone, not just in the fact that they scored 5 straight and got the turnover, but your first goal when you're behind by more than double digits is that you do want to cut that lead down to under double digits, and they did it within a minute and a half.
Hold is called against Bishop Moore's number 10, Keyshawn Hendrickson. His second, the team's 6th. Checking into the game for the Braves, number 10, Will Searl.
So again, Javion Phelps remains the high scorer for Boone with 18.
Javion Phelps for 3.
Well, make that 21, Mark. I guess Boone probably wants me to mention him some more. So Javion Phelps is now 4 of 8 from the field, 10 of 12 from the free throw line. again, 21 points. He has been complimented by Will Searl's 14. 10 players have put up points here for Boone. Looking at Bishop Moore, their leading scorer is Keyshawn Hendrickson with 13. Actually, Blake Berkey has 14. Keyshawn Hendrickson has 13. As now Boone has an opportunity to re-increase that lead to 14, possibly even 15. And only 6 players, again, compared to 10 for Boone, have scored for Bishop Moore. So definitely the committee approach is working for Boone.
Second chance basket by Matthew Kleber.
And again, a 9-5 lead in the Metro versus Florida standings. Florida with the lead. And again, here, while we are still fairly early in the fourth quarter, I want to mention one last time, talked about a number of times, but again, one last time, changes made by the FHSAA during the offseason.
But first, Keyshawn Hendrickson is fouled on the attempt. He'll go to the line and shoot 2. The Boone foul is called against Daniel Cross. That's his first, the team's 5th.
So Hendrickson, 5 of 8 from the field. This is actually his first free throw attempt. And again, Mark, those changes start with the fact that the FHSAA decided to reduce the amount of classifications from 9 to 7. So now you have bigger districts. Up until this point, you were looking at 4 or 5 team members. Now the smallest districts are 7.
Full timeout is requested by the Braves. You were saying, Neil.
Yeah. So there were 9 classifications, which is now down to 7, and of course that also means bigger districts, as many as 9. So that not only changes the amount of teams you have to play in each district, but it also changes the direction. It also changes logistics. You have to travel further. You're going to now see a much more wider variety and diverse different types of teams as far as styles, characteristics, and personalities. But what it does most directly, the direct effect, is that now we have a different playoff format. It is similar as far as how teams qualify. It is exactly the same as football has been using for the last 3 seasons. There are four regions across the state of Florida, 4 districts in each of those 4 regions. The district champion still gets the automatic berth into the FHSA postseason tournament, and they will receive a seeding of no worse than 4th. However, the last 4 berths in each of those regions are now determined by a wild card, and the wild card is determined by a point system overseen by maxpreps.com.
Of course, those were formerly awarded to the district runner-up, so
yeah.
Now being a district runner-up in and of itself gets you nothing unless you also qualify as a wild card at-large point getter. And of course, the MaxPrep system is proprietary, and so we don't have the exact formula for it, but it is largely believed to be similar to the RPI system that is used by the FHSAA for MaxPreps.
So, by the way, both teams have 10 turnovers now.
Trayvon Osborne gets the second chance basket. And so the primary factor that goes into those rankings is widely believed to be, first and foremost, your own win-loss record, and then to lesser degrees, your opponents and your opponents' opponents' win-loss records. That's what determines your strength of schedule, and that determines the quality of the win that you get. So even a team with a better record may have a lower overall ranking score. And here, Javion Phelps is going to get called for traveling. Hornets ball. The other consequence of that is it is no longer necessary for each team to play each other team in their district either once or twice as determined in the district meeting. You could go the entire season and not play a district opponent at all. And in some cases that could be important, as Zach Hudson gets a 3-pointer on the pass from Hendrickson. In some cases, that could be important and highly relevant because not only are the districts larger in terms of number of teams, a lot of times they are larger geographically as well. And some of your district opponents could be quite far away and incur a lot of travel expenses for both the school and its fans. And so that is entirely a realistic possibility. Phelps to DePryor to pick up 2 for the Braves.
Yeah, Mark, but it does also, the new format does also eliminate the possibility of a team playing very poorly during the regular season and then getting hot and for 3 or 4 games play real well. Of course, we saw that, as much as I hate to say this, being the house announcers for Wekiva, but that's exactly what Wekiva did last year. They upset Apopka in the district semifinals. They were only 9-17. Again, the record reflected that 2/3 of the time they were playing on the poorer side. And that upset, though, got them into the final, which meant they did no worse than being runner-up, which is what eventually happened.
Well, and the other primary motivation behind changing the system, not just in basketball, but in most of the major team sports, is to eliminate the possibility that 2 teams from a really weak district get into the postseason, while eliminating a 3rd team that would not have made it from a really strong district. So if you have the misfortune of geography, maybe that helps you now. Nice block.
And by the way, this year in volleyball, in Class 6A, Region 1, there were 4 teams from District 1 that made the FHSAA postseason tournament.
Osborne to Jones for 3 on the turnover, and we'll pause for a timeout. The Hornets request timeout, 30-second timeout called by Bishop Moore.
So again, with that 3-pointer, getting the fans excited there, it's a different sport, but to your point, Mark, the FHSAA postseason tournament, Class 8A for volleyball, 4 teams from District 1, that's the one out on the coast there, the East Coast, made the tournament this year.
Yeah, exactly, and that is the intended result. We saw the same thing in football, not necessarily with the teams from around here, which are all strong districts, but we saw that elsewhere in the state where one district ended up with 3 or 4 teams represented in the postseason tournament, and the other district, just their champion made it. And that is exactly the way the system is supposed to work, and it's what we're going to expect to see when we get to the end of this basketball season. So it'll be very interesting to see how this shakes out. This is a new system for everybody. All the coaches are getting used to it. They're planning their schedules accordingly to try to strategize, get points where they can.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Mark, Bishop Moore has cut this lead back down to 6. Boone with a couple of turnovers here. As I mentioned, they are actually now up to 11. Bishop Moore with 11 as well. Both teams remaining in man-to-man coverage as we dip under a minute and a half. One last time here, the Florida contingency has a 9-5 lead right now. And another turnover by Boone. Great defense by Bishop Moore, trapping Boone along the sideline.
Trayvon Osborne picks up 2 on the pass from Jones. And we'll pause for another timeout. $1:04 remaining in the 4th quarter. And we'll take a full timeout requested by the Braves. We'll be back for an exciting conclusion here at Joe Sterling Gymnasium. 4-point ball game with just over a minute to play.
So as we come back to action here, Mark, just like to point out, we've seen this a couple of times. Last 3-4 minutes, a team down by about a dozen, they make a rally and then they run out of steam. Bishop Moore needs to be mindful of that situation. And looking at the stats here once again, Bishop Moore has definitely been up and down with that field goal percentage.
Push is called against number 2, Michael Bright, his third, the team's 7th. At the line shooting bonus, number 3.
So Bishop Moore missed the first 7 field goal attempts in this game. They then got back up to 48% at halftime. We're down to 35 at the end of third quarter. They're now back up to 41. Again, very up and down, a lot of stretches. And either they're shooting the ball really well or shooting very poorly. Boone, on the other hand, made 3 of the first 5 field goals. They were at 50% at halftime, and then 48% at the end of third quarter, now 49. Both teams have 10 turnovers, and both of those turnovers, they've seemed to make consecutive turnovers, more than one. In consecutive possessions, they've turned the ball over.
Block is called against Braves number 1, Joey DePryor. It's his third personal foul, the team's 6th. Then at the line shooting 2 is Trayvon Osborne.
And so consecutive possessions in which turnovers have occurred. On the other end, there's been consecutive possessions in which points have been scored.
Well, Neil, the Hornets not willing to go quietly into the night on this one. Hustle for the rebound.
So both teams with opportunities at the free throw line. Nothing changes. Both make 1 of 2.
Timeout called by the Braves. 30-second timeout requested by Boone. And ladies and gentlemen, here's your game resets. Looking at the scoring, your leading scorers for Bishop Moore: Blake Berkey with 14 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Keyshawn Hendrickson, 15 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist. On the Boone side, Will Searl has 14 points, 6 rebounds. And Javion Phelps leads all scorers with 21 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. Neither team has a foul to give. We'll be shooting 1-on-1 bonus the rest of the way on both sides. Timeouts remaining. Boone has 3, and the Hornets have 2 remaining. As we go into the last 43.4 seconds of this ball game.
Both teams remain in the man-to-man. Now, of course, we're seeing full court. Oh, some great passing by Boone, but some even better defense.
A 30-second timeout is requested by the Braves. And that'll leave them with 2 left.
So it looked like Boone was going to get an easy basket, at least an easy opportunity, which was going to take some valuable time off the clock. The Bishop Moore, great recovery defense, sliding across that baseline and getting into the right position and hitting the ball at the right angle.
All right, 34.4 seconds to go here. 4-point ball game. Definitely not over yet. But the Braves in command.
Braves get the ball inbound here. Most important action.
Searl gets fouled. He'll go to the line and shoot bonus. Foul is called against number 11, Mark Morrison. His first, the team's 8th, checking into the game for the Hornets. Number 2, Blake Berkey comes back in for Montrell Bell.
Who's at the line? So again, Searl at the line with 14 points. He's 7 of 14 from the field, and believe it or not, that is actually his first free throw attempt. So actually he now has 15 points, 8 rebounds as well. Ooh, leaves the door open there a little bit. Bishop Moore still has life. 18 seconds. Gotta get a shot off. And I'm not sure that's the shot you want there in that situation. Remember, you're down by 5, so you don't have to get 2 3-pointers. At some point, you do need a deuce.
Yeah, that wasn't going to do it. With 7.7 left, this seems to be a winnowing window of opportunity for the Hornets here.
Yeah, they're going to have to get a turnover here immediately, and that's not going to happen. They do a nice job of getting the foul immediately, but again, I think one more point that will pretty much seal the deal. You'll have to get 2 trays.
Foul is called against number 10, Keyshawn Hendrickson on the hold. That's his 3rd personal foul, the team's 9th. At the line shooting 1-1 will be Will Searl.
And again, Searl now has 15 points, make that 16. So again, Boone had 10 players scored tonight. They did have 2 guys who scored significantly more than everyone else. Phelps with 21, Searl now with 17, but still they had 10 points scored, while Bishop Moore only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. So definitely the committee approach is going to win the night tonight.
And to your point, Neil, now with a 7-point contest with both of those made, this becomes essentially an unwinnable proposition. And that takes us to the end of the ball game, and it takes us to the end of day 2 here at the 10th annual Metro versus Florida Challenge. 61-54 is the final score, and Boone notches a win for the Orlando Metro Conference in a game that was close and a great one all the way down to the very end. And that also gives the Metro Conference a little bit more breathing room going into tomorrow's event. They now trail 6-9 for the event so far. I'll see if they can make the rest of that up tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out tonight to support your Hornets and Brave athletes. Special thanks also to those of you who joined us on our YouTube channel, Metro versus Florida Challenge. We'll be back tomorrow where we have 8 more games of Metro versus Florida action. We'll be here at 10 a.m. with Winter Park versus Lake Highland Prep in game number 16 as we head toward the magic number of 23 in our 10th anniversary season. From all of us at Apopka High School, thanks for spending part of your holiday weekend with us. Please drive carefully and arrive home safely. Have a great night.